Hey everyone, John here from flyinghandyman.com, and today we're going to be replacing this kind of dim, not very bright fan in our garage here with a very bright, flat, low profile LED light from Costco, 50 bucks. Much brighter, much better. Here's how it's done. All right, for starters today, some pretty simple tools. We've got our non-contact electrical tester. We've got a flathead screwdriver, Phillips head screwdriver, and a Leatherman for some pliers. Now, we can go ahead and check that everything is cold up here. Obviously, this isn't getting very close to any wires, so it's not really a great test. Maybe we'll go ahead and duck down, get our head out of the way of the blades, and pull on some of these cords here, make sure that everything is in fact turned off. That looks good. Now, once we get this cover off here, we will wave this little non-contact tester around there again, just to check and make sure all those wires are in fact cold, nothing is hot in there when we are reaching up with our hands inside there. Now, these fans are attached to the ceiling in one of two ways. So one way would be that this little dome here is actually supporting all of the weight of the fan. So we have two screws here, we have two screws on the back side. We can see we undo one here, undo one on the other side, and then we can loosen these guys on either side and twist it, and the whole thing will drop down, and then there'll be some wires to disconnect. Or the other option, the more modern option, is that this is just for looks. We'll drop this cover down, and then you'll actually see a bracket attached to the box in the ceiling that will actually kind of unlatch that ball and socket joint, and then the whole weight of the fan will come down. Now, to make this easier, we could do this in parts. We could take all the blades off, we could take this dish off, try to save ourselves some weight. This isn't going to be that heavy for us. I'm not too concerned about the weight, so I'm just gonna go ahead and start removing these screws that I know I need to remove, and then leaving in at least one on each side to support the weight in case there is that older design where this dish is supporting all the weight of the fan. So I'm just gonna go ahead and give this one just a little turn there just to loosen it, but we can see that it still is in fact keeping that cover up there. We'll go ahead and for our screws, just drop them right in the dish there. Not even a glass dish, kind of plasticky dish. Same thing on the other side here. All right, so we have that screw removed, we have the screw removed from the other side, and I can actually tell just by wiggling this around how loose that is that, yep, I can twist this, it's gonna drop straight down, and the whole weight of the fan is actually being supported by that bracket attached to the ceiling box. So now that cover is down, we can go ahead and pull our wiring out. We can see we have lots of extra wiring here because this fan was designed to also function if you wanted to have a very long pipe hanging down from the ceiling, if this was in a very high ceiling room. We'll pull out these other wires here. And now before we get too excited here pulling out all these wires, we're gonna go ahead and make sure we're set to 70 to 1000 volts and check and see if any of these guys are hot. Just doing that, you can get some false positives. So just kind of push it in there and hold. And yes, everything is in fact cold. If I do that, yes, you actually are generating a little voltage, just static electricity wise between the plastic, and it is picking that up. But pressing and holding there, we're not getting any solid steady beeps, so we should be good there. Everything is ready to go ahead and disconnect. We'll go ahead and remove these wire nuts and then replace them just so it's a nice convenient place for them to stay. And those wires stay protected just in case anything does become hot at some point. Remove our ground wires there, cap that off. And coming around this side of the light fixture, we can see where right in there we have that ball and socket joint. So as I lift up this fan and slide it out to the left there, that is when it is going to come down free from the ceiling. And you'll be supporting all that weight, so it's really good to have an extra person here to catch the weight of that fan. Making sure all our wires are free, nothing is hung up. We've got our neutral wire, our hot wire, and our ground. This other ground is going to be free here. So we're gonna lift up, slide out, and that removes the fan all in one piece. Now that we have that out of the way, it's time to go ahead and remove this ceiling bracket. Should just be two screws holding it in. And these wires will need to be fed back through the ceiling bracket to get them out of there as we drop some screws. And there we go. Ceiling bracket is gone. We're left with a ground, a hot, and a neutral, and it's time for us to go ahead and start unboxing our Artika LED skylight. Okay, so what comes in the box here? Well, let's go ahead and open it up. We've got, obviously, our light fixture, got some packing material, and we have this handy little box here that has some additional hardware, some fresh wire nuts, and some wall anchors as well. Or really, in this case, going to be ceiling anchors since it's going into the ceiling. So what we have here is 4 screws to hold up our plate, and then 2 machine thread screws that are also gonna hold up the plate, and these are gonna go into the ceiling box. So our mounting bracket will slide out of there just like that. When we go ahead and install this on the ceiling, we'll eventually install the light by putting it up and sliding it in place, locking it in place. We can see those little locking tabs down there. We can see how this guy kind of fits that wall box that's already up there. So that'll go up to the ceiling, and then these 4 other anchor points to use those bigger drywall anchors and screws to make sure that the full weight of this guy is actually supported, not just by those 2 points. Also, because this whole bracket will kind of bend and bow, since it is an odd shape, kind of a longer shape, you want to hold it nice tight to the ceiling. So that'll help us get this bracket nice and tight to the ceiling with these 4 additional wall anchors. Big thing is this bracket needs to go on straight to the ceiling. Let's go ahead and take a look how this is going to mount up. So I've got our wall bracket here. We've got that arrow. Doesn't really matter which way it goes, but obviously this arrow is going to be the length of the light. So either this direction or this direction, whichever way you want it to go. I'd like it to run lengthwise in the garage. We're going to get these wires fed right through the center here and then hold this guy up. And I've got in my hand here our machine thread screws that came with our Artika light, because they were using kind of drywall screws to hold that other fan up, which is kind of sketchy. So we're going to use the actual correct screws. Before I actually do that, I'm just going to stick them into those holes, make sure that they can actually feed in and thread in nicely. And yes, they do have really good holding power. So the previous screws that were in there did not destroy those holes in that ceiling box. And then we're going to go ahead and get these guys fed in here, lined up in those holes. And we can just make them finger tight for now. So there's one, just finger tight, that'll hold that guy up there. Get my wires out of the way. Put our next one in. Again, just finger tight. Then we can go ahead and start snugging things up with our screwdriver here. We're not making it too snug. We want to still be able to twist this around, because we're going to get down and get out with our laser level and make sure that this is actually true to the room, to make sure it is all square so we don't have our light kind of on a weird diagonal or anything like that. So now we've got this guy nice and straight and true with the room. We used our laser line to do that. If you don't have one of those, no problem. You could always use a tape measure back to your wall and just measure the distance from one of these brackets or the edge of this ceiling plate to the wall on either side, assuming that your wall is actually straight and you're aligning it that way. So there's a little bit of wiggle room there. What we're going to do next is actually loosen these up just slightly. But first, we're going to go ahead and mark off where we want those other 4 anchors to be. So right in those holes there, right where those 4 other screws are going to go to help hold up this plate. We can see how it would kind of bow down there a little bit. We want things to be held nice and flush, tight to the ceiling, to try to hold that whole light nice and flush and tight to the ceiling. So there, I got my 4 marks into the ceiling, into the drywall. We'll go ahead and loosen these up just a hair so we can spin this plate a little bit and get it just out of the way of us putting those 4 other wall anchors in. Now, when it's time to make the holes to put these ceiling anchors in, or wall anchors in, whatever you want to call them, drywall anchors, there's 2 ways to do it. You could be very lazy and just jam your screwdriver right through the ceiling there to make a hole. And there you go, you made a hole. Now, is that hole gonna work? Yep, it sure is. We can go ahead and wiggle that guy on up in there and just kind of hammer him in until he's nice and flush. There we are, he's nice and flush. The other way to do it would be a little nicer and neater, would be to actually drill. You'll make a little bit more dust, but you'll also not be tearing up your drywall and not be making your screwdriver all full of dust and dirt there. Quite frankly, I'm just gonna go with the quick and easy way here. Now, to not destroy your thumbs shoving that up in there, that's where the backside of the screwdriver comes into play. And we can just gently push them up, or you can hammer on them a little bit to get them in there. Trouble with hammering is you might actually start to get a little bit off center and bend them and break them, and then you gotta get a pair of pliers, rip them out, and hopefully you have extras. Now, if this was any sort of real load going into drywall, I'd be using these guys right here, drywall anchor. These are awesome. They spin in, they come with these little plastic guys as well as the screws for them, and they really hook and hold nice and tight. Because this is so light and it's fairly cheap and it came with these other anchors already, that should be more than sufficient for me to be able to mount this light nice and safely. Now you also certainly could at this point go ahead and just use a regular Phillips head screwdriver to do this. To save my forearm and my hand, because I've got a lot of work to do today, we're gonna be a little lazy and just use a drill. All right, that's nice and attached there. It's ready for us to go ahead and grab our skylight, hook them on here to this temporary little clamp to make it easier for us to work, and then we'll connect our wiring. So two things that are really cool about Artika light fixtures. First one, they come from Costco and they're typically pretty cheap. Second one, they have this handy little, or all of them I've seen so far, have had these handy little cables and clips so you can actually clip the light fixture in place and then let it hang so you're not supporting the weight of it while you're going ahead and connecting all your wiring. This one was just 50 bucks from Costco, which is pretty awesome. Home Depot has similar ones, 1 foot by 4 foot. That's what this is, 12 by 48 inch. And Home Depot runs about 100 bucks on these right now. Costco, 50 bucks for this guy is pretty sweet. At this point, it's as simple as get these wires nice and cleaned up. We're gonna go ahead and connect our hot wire with the hot. That's a little bit long there for me. That's a pretty long exposure there on that copper there on that hot wire. So I'm gonna cap it off for now and actually grab a Leatherman here and just clip off the end, because that's a little bit much to be actually totally covered by the actual wire nut. I don't want any bare wires up inside that fixture. I'm just gonna cut it back just a little bit there, and probably a similar thing on the neutral wire here. It's a little bit long for my taste. I'm just gonna cut it back just a little bit there, make it a little bit safer so that there's no chance of any bare wires up inside this fixture. Just simply place the two ends together, and if they're nice and pointy together, we'll go ahead and slip that wire nut on, twist. We'll just keep on twisting until we see the wires on the back side, so the wires that are covered in insulation right back here, until those start to twist together. So you can see I'm getting that nice twist there. It means everything is nice and tight inside that wire nut. We've got some strands of wire that were kind of hanging down there. That would be bad, so we want to make sure everything is pointing forward. And we'll push those two together, get the two tips lined up together as close as possible. There we go, they're nice and together. Slip that wire nut on, same exact thing. Just keep spinning and tightening until you see the insulation covered part of the wire right here start to actually twist together. There we are, we got a nice twist there. We'll go ahead and connect our ground wire as well. And now at this point, I'm gonna do my best to shove as much of this stuff back up inside here as I possibly can, just to get it out of the way, so it's not gonna be pressing down on my fixture. These other wires should be fine just laying flat there. And then I'm gonna go ahead and push this guy up, getting these slots lined up with these tabs up here. And we're going to start over on the right, get those tabs lined up, and then slide them into place. He's locked on. You may have slight gaps, very slight gaps on the edge there. It's just kind of a function of this fixture. If you got your plate nice and flush to the ceiling with those 4 extra mounting screws, that shouldn't be such an issue for you. There's gonna be that little bit of play there, don't worry about it. It makes it easy to go ahead and remove this if you ever have to change it out, or actually go ahead and replace it because for some reason it does burn out, but this should be good for a very long time. Let's go ahead and flip the breaker back on and give this a test. Wow, that works really good. Nice and bright. Let's go ahead and compare it to our last one. So same room, same camera settings, and different light. That is what we have now. Much brighter in here, much brighter. Probably could use more than just one of them. That is a 3700 lumen fixture, which replaces the 2 800 lumen bulbs that we had previous. So more than twice as much light in the space, a little bit whiter light, a little bit cooler light as well, 4000 Kelvin. And the only thing I would do different is probably put an extra one in here, but that was nice and simple since I already had that ceiling box there, already had the wiring for it, already had the switch installed right here on the wall for it. Makes life so much easier just to put one of them in there. It's a big improvement over what we had. If we get more motivated for a later video, maybe we will go ahead and actually pull more wiring throughout the ceiling, install another ceiling box, and mount another 1 or 2 of these guys in here and really brighten up this space. Anyways, that is it for replacing your ceiling fan, your old dated ceiling fan, with the Artika Skylight from Costco, 50 bucks, $49.99. Pretty sweet deal. If you guys liked the video, give it a thumbs up. Would really appreciate it. Make sure you subscribe over there on the bottom right if you guys have not already, and hit that little bell so you get notified when we post more videos on this entire house remodel that we are doing, making this home a lot nicer, more things to come like painting the garage floors, insulating the door, lots of bathroom and kitchen work to do. Be sure to check all that out. My name is John from FlyingHandyman.com. Thank you so much for watching, guys, and happy hammering.